Greetings from United Religions Initiative, South India, Sri Lanka region, Kottarakara. Some viewers of my previous session on disaster management topic wanted to know more about me. Respecting to that, let me introduce myself. K.G. Mathaikutty is my name. I am part of United Religions Initiative, South India, Sri Lanka region office since 2018. In this capacity of its executive secretary and liaison officer. URI is a global interfaith peace building organization working through voluntary cooperation circles spread in over 900 countries. After 35 years of my active regular service since 1976 under United Nations recognized social and humanitarian international non-government organization called the Lutheran World Federation, Department for World Service, headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, as its advisor and departmental head for disaster management unit in India, Myanmar, Japan, Haiti and Philippines. Upholding my sense of social responsibility to my homeland, Kerala, I decided to retire from outside Kerala regular assignments after served as the Executive Secretary of Lutheran World Service India Trust headquartered at Calcutta during the years 2014-2015. I support the disaster management related activities of Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church Social and Humanitarian Action Moksha of my mother church, and while continuing awareness campaign program through URI CC Cosmic Community Center situated at Calcutta, situated in Kottarakara, I found that there are gaps, especially in the context of increasing trend of intensity and frequency of disasters in Kerala. I am stationed at Kottarakara. The topic of the previous session was on community preparedness for disaster management. In this session, I would like to share with you some basic information on the service providers, service bearers and stakeholders, nodal agencies, institutional agencies, etc. for the management of disaster of different types of disasters. At this juncture, I think it will be of interest to know little bit about the background of the formation of central government's high powered committee and National Disaster Management Authority and State Disaster Management Authority and the mechanism and the response mechanism system. Necessity is the mother of invention. It has been proved based on the past experience that after having faced with major incidents and or disasters, the nations in general and state in particular began to think about formulation of legislation and introduction of policy, activation of rules, etc. to effectively manage such situations through established system. During 90s, after several deliberations, the central government formed a high powered committee and the Prime Minister was the chairperson and Home Minister as vice chair. Subcommittees were formed for different categories of major hazards such as meteorological, hydrological, geological and human activity related. High powered committees were also formed to frame the policies. Members of these committees were from the respective departments of the concerned state governments and non-government organizations were selected based on their credibility. Being a credible and mainstream NGO operating in India since 1975, Government of Orissa nominated Lutheran World Service India and being their zonal chief, I had the privilege and opportunity to represent LWSI in the High Powered Committee for Hydrological Hazards during the second half of 1990s. During the second half, during this time, based on the recommendations of the High Powered Committee, National Disaster Management Authority was formed. The Orissa State Disaster Mitigation Authority OSDMA was set up in Orissa after the October 1999 Orissa supercyclone. This was followed the Gujarat State Disaster Management Authority GSDMA, which was set up in Gujarat after the 2001 Bhuj earthquake. Under the policy of the national and state disaster management authorities, the participation and recognition of NGOs and civil society organizations contributions were considered as valuable supplementary and complementary support to the government's efforts in the pre and post phases of disaster management cycle. In India, for the management of different disasters, there are nodal agencies under different ministries and departments. For flood response, flood related disasters, Central Water Committee under Ministry of Water Resources, cyclones, Indian Meteorological Directorate, earthquake, Indian Meteorological Directorate, epidemics, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, chemical disasters, Ministry of Environment and Forests, industrial disasters, Ministry of Labour, rail accident related disasters, Ministry of Railway, fire accidents, Ministry of Civil Aviation, nuclear incidents, Department of Atomic Energy, mine disasters, Department of Mines. Institutional mechanism for disaster management at different administrative levels are central government, National Disaster Management Authority. It is an apex body with Prime Minister as chairperson. National Executive Committee chaired by Cabinet Secretary. Central ministries have one nodal officer. National Institute of Disaster Management NIDM, National Disaster Response Force NDRF. Incidentally, I was I am part of one of the trainings conducted by NIDM in New Delhi on disaster response activities in last part of 90s. So, at state level, State Disaster Management Authority SDMA headed by Chief Minister, State Executive Committee in short SEC chaired by Chief Secretary, State Emergency Operation Center SEOC, State Disaster Response Force SDRF under Home Department, and down to district level, District Disaster Management Authority DDMA, the chairman is district collector and co-chair person is district panchayat president. District Emergency Operation Center. These three are the main body at the district to deal with disasters. Then at taluk level, the control room will be there, and the Tahsildar will be in responsible for taking decision at that level. Panchayat level, Gram Panchayat District Management Committee and emergency response teams. These are the administrative setup from national to the down up panchayat level. So, in this connection, I would like to share with you the available resources and knowledge network, India Disaster Resource Network, in short IDRN, and it was inaugurated on 1st September 2003. web enabled centralized database for quick access. Then other resource is to maintain response time and updated every year at district and state level. 226 items, 69,329 records in 545 districts are so far uploaded. India Disaster Knowledge Network IDKN, then web portal for knowledge collaboration, mapping, networking, emergency contact information system. Then for Go Easy, to use unified point of access to disaster management and mitigation and response network. IKDN is a part of South Asian Disaster Knowledge Network, South SADKN. So, Indian Disaster Knowledge Network and the South Asian Disaster Knowledge Network are at work when multinational disasters like tsunami etc. happens, and research supports are available in this connection. Why I am telling this is for general information that are at work in case of disaster response. Involvement of various universities and research institutes to carry out research to disaster management, and case studies and lessons learned exercise by NIDM, preparation of digital maps, preparation of upgraded hazard maps, development of GIS platform for vulnerability analysis and risk assessment. Seismic microzonation is also for earthquake related hazards. Improved modeling for advanced forecasting capacity. National Disaster Management Information System NDMIS. These are the network available and making use by the nation. Other institutional arrangements are at work at times of disaster as and when it required, depending on the intensity of the disaster. Those are armed forces, central paramilitary forces, state police forces and fire services, civil defense and home guards, state disaster response force SDRF, National Cadet Corps NCC, National Service Scheme SDRF, National Cadet Corps National Service Scheme NSS, Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangam NYKS. Then other stakeholders informations, some information that stakeholders who are participation include corporate social responsibility CSR, public private partnership PPP, public media partnership, training of communities, disaster management education in schools, especially CBSE course. Disaster management education has been part of the syllabus, and how many schools are taking it seriously is yet to know, and this anyway it is an important. This lessons will also helpful for those school students at the class standard from 8 to 10. In Caricum International Public School, this is a regular classes for those senior students, which I am taking care of. Then available international cooperation after major disasters are United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, then UN OCHA. UN OCHA is the main agency in UN for networking, coordinating in case of disasters for all international disaster response. United Nations Development Program UNDP for mitigation and prevention aspects, and UN Disaster Assessment and Coordination UNDAC system, streamlining institutional arrangements for disaster response. The Asian Disaster Reduction Center in Kobe, 1998 it started, it is in Japan, to enhance disaster resilience of the 30-member countries, to build safe communities, to create a society where sustainable development is possible. International non-government agencies, INGOs, all these are the additional support system to the government's effort. Areas of concern are also to be noted at this juncture. So, these are activating an early warning system network and its close monitoring is very important. Mechanisms for integrating the scientific, technological and administrative agencies for effective disaster management. Torrential communications links which collapse in the event of a rapid onset disaster such as an earthquake, a tsunami, these are all can destroy the communication system, and also cyclone. Then further, I state below some of the future directions, what are expected to do for a effective system of disaster management. Encourage and consolidate knowledge networks, mobilize and train disaster volunteers for more effective preparedness, mitigation and response. The teams, the stakeholders like NSS, NCC, Scouts and guides, Nehru Yuva Kendra, civil defense, home guards, all these sections or all these teams can be collected and they can be given proper training to disaster management. Increased capacity building leads to faster vulnerability reduction, that is very important. Learn from best practices in disaster preparedness, mitigation and disaster response. Mobilizing stakeholders participation of self-help group, women's group, youth groups, Panchayat Raj institutions, then anticipatory governance simulation exercise, mock drills or dry drills and scenario analysis. Indigenous knowledge systems and coping practices, living with risk community based disaster risk management system. Inclusive, participatory, gender sensitive, child friendly, eco friendly and disabled friendly disaster management. Technology driven but people owned. Knowledge management, documentation and dissemination of good practices. Strengthen all other levels of preparedness. Seamless PIME activities, that is planning, implementation, monitoring and evaluation. Top down and bottom up approach in this respect would be more effective and healthy. Enhanced sense of ownership, seamless performance of response services, early recovery, minimize the impact of hazards, more awareness in families through ripple effect. Ripple effect. One family and share their success stories with others and it goes and spread in a wider community level. So, effective established community based disaster management system and building back better resilient communities are possible through this community capacity building. Hazard versus disasters. I earlier mentioned about the certain contributory factors adding to the hazards. In most cases, the disasters will not occur, but the incidents will remain as hazard only. Natural and anthropogenic or human induced natural hazards are further categorized as meteorological, hydrological, geological etc. and anthropogenic hazards are human related activities. The hazards that are categorized under the natural are earthquake, tsunami, lightning, floods, cyclone, drought, avalanche, storm surge, strong wind, hurricane, forest fire, etc. Whereas accidents, chemical leakage, riots, stampedes, blasts, fire, epidemic, etc. are human induced hazards. Both natural and anthropogenic hazards are made to become disaster mainly induced or aggravated by the human activities. That is very clear. It can some people may argue that, and there are many reasons to establish that it is every disaster, every hazard to become disaster, there are human aspect in it, without which it may not be able to turn out to be, in most cases, turned out to be a disaster. Now, let us look at the alphabets of disaster composed of and see and the interpretation of action involved in. This is just for information and with a certain amount of perception. D, disaster word, D alphabet stands for detection. I, it is an incident command. In every disaster, these 8 components are important, that the first the alphabetic letters of disaster represents. Then S, safety and security, and A, assess hazards, S, support, T, triage and treatment, E, evacuation, and R, recovery. So, thus the disaster word consists of these actions. So, in all the above components, all the levels of disaster management respondents involvement are essential depending on the intensity of the disaster. Since all the different micro level of preparedness is aimed at families and individuals, let us talk about the scope of individual and family preparedness. Among the different levels of preparedness, the primary level of preparedness is individual and family level, which are expected to strengthen all other levels of preparedness, top down and bottom up. Although the families and individuals are covered within the scope of the community preparedness, it is important for each family and individual to have their own preparedness as well. The valuables are to be protected, are to be kept. So, there is a separate session would be worth considering for that. Then family preparedness system, the advantages of creating awareness and establishing individual and family preparedness system, I just try to narrate, I just list out. So, if necessary in the future sessions it can be touched also. The advantages are strengthen all other levels of preparedness at bottom up preparedness, seamless PIME activities, top down and bottom up. PIME stands for planning, implementation, monitoring and evaluation. Then these are some of the topic I just wanted to share, and these are of course is the future best practices, and every levels of government and non-government and all other stakeholders can looked into, and in Kerala especially these awareness are needed very badly, because till 2018 the current in the memory there were hardly any major disasters. With Kerala flood in 2018 is triggered, and thereafter several disasters one after another. General trend has been the increase in intensity and frequency of disasters. So, at this juncture it is very important for every individual, every family, every community and at different levels of government administration required to know the steps and required to know what is disaster, how we can respond to it, how we can help themselves and how we can help others at times of crisis. These are the idea I thought to share with you, and I certainly expect meaningful feedback from you, creative information and creative suggestions so that it can be included and I can address those things from my experience of for the past almost 40 years in India and outside India, responding to major disasters. So, thank you very much, and may this be of some help to you, and I look forward to the continued comments and suggestions on the feedback. Thank you, and may God bless.